EMU at 4.7 psi.
Where's the remote?
Here. Oh my God.
Not letting Calvin back in here.
What is going on?
3, firing! Selves into decaying orbit. We'll reach atmosphere soon if I don't.
Get the plasma cutter.
Go!
Aboard the International Space Station, ISS, 6 brave souls confront the unknown in a mission that will alter their lives forever. David Jordan, the American medical officer, bears the weight of keeping the crew alive. Dr. Miranda North, a brilliant British scientist from the CDC, brings her sharp analytical mind. Rory Adams, a fearless American engineer, never hesitates to risk everything. Sho Murakami, the Japanese systems engineer, tirelessly works to keep the station operational. Dr. Hugh Derry, a British exobiologist, pursues the dream of discovering life beyond Earth with fervent passion. And leading with unwavering resolve, Russian Commander Katerina Golovkina inspires them all with her steadfast determination. Hope and excitement fill the air when the crew receives a probe returning from Mars, carrying a soil sample that could unlock the secret of extraterrestrial life. With hearts pounding in anticipation, Hugh Derry reactivates a dormant cell from the sample. What begins as a scientific miracle, a multicellular organism growing before their eyes, captures the imagination of millions on Earth. The population follows every moment with fervor, and a group of American school children, brimming with pride, name the creature Calvin. After their school, it's self-named for President Calvin Coolidge. It's a moment of unity, of shared dreams bridging Earth and the cosmos. But the wonder soon turns to nightmare. An atmospheric accident in the laboratory plunges Calvin into an inactive state, extinguishing the spark of hope. Desperate to reclaim the discovery, Hugh attempts to revive it with gentle electric shocks. Initial success turns to horror when Calvin awakens, not as a miracle, but as a menace. With terrifying ferocity, the creature attacks Hugh, crushing every bone in his right hand in a moment of indescribable agony. The laboratory, once a haven of science and dreams, becomes a battlefield. Calvin, ravenous and ever-evolving, devours a lab rat, growing grotesquely. Rory Adams, driven by courage and loyalty, rushes to rescue his wounded colleague, but the creature is relentless. In a swift motion, Calvin seizes Rory by the leg, as if fate itself had marked him. David Jordan, his heart torn but resolute, makes a gut-wrenching decision. He seals the laboratory, isolating Calvin but also dooming Rory, trapped with the monster. In that moment, the crew realizes they are not just fighting for science, but for their very survival, in a clash where fear and bravery intertwine in a deadly dance. In the sealed laboratory, the air is thick with tension and terror. Rory Adams, his heart racing, knows his crew's survival hangs by a thread. With courage that defies fear, he wields a flamethrower, determined to end Calvin's threat. Flames roar, casting an infernal glow across the space, but the creature remains unmoved, its alien skin impervious to fire. In a moment of pure horror, Calvin seizes the opportunity and, with terrifying speed, forces its way into Rory's mouth. The engineer, trapped in unimaginable agony, feels the creature devouring his organs from within. stealing his life slowly and cruelly. When Calvin emerges from Rory's lifeless body, it is larger, more terrifying. A monster that seems to mock humanity itself. Under the helpless, horrified gaze of Dr. David Jordan, Calvin escapes through a ventilation duct, leaving behind a silence heavy with the weight of a death sentence. Amid the chaos, Dr. Hugh Derry, his hands shattered but his mind still sharp, theorizes that the lack of oxygen on Mars kept Calvin dormant. A faint glimmer of hope, a clue to fight the monster. But hope fades when the crew tries to contact Earth and finds the communications dead. Commander Ekaterina Golovkina, with steely determination, volunteers for a spacewalk to repair the antenna. Outside, in the vast darkness of space, Calvin ambushes her. The creature destroys her suit's cooling system, and liquid begins to flood her helmet, stealing her breath. In an act of sacrifice that echoes the gravity of her leadership, Golovkina refuses to open the airlock, knowing it would let Calvin inside, with her crew's tears visible only in their hearts. She chooses to drown in her suit, a final act of bravery to protect her team and humanity. Calvin, undeterred, tries to infiltrate the station through the thruster nozzles, a relentless predator. The desperate crew attempts to ignite the thrusters to blast the creature into the infinite void, far from Earth. But the plan fails, and the station loses vital fuel, leaving them teetering on the edge of oblivion. The failed maneuvers have pushed the ISS into a dangerous re-entry orbit, a path to destruction that could burn up the station. Or worse, allow Calvin to reach Earth. Sho Murakami, the Japanese pilot, his voice trembling yet firm, warns that the remaining fuel must be used to stabilize the orbit, even if it risks letting Calvin in through the nozzles. In a last-ditch effort to survive, the crew devises a desperate plan. Trap Calvin in a sealed module and deprive of oxygen, praying the monster succumbs before their own options and hope run out. The horror escalates aboard the International Space Station as Dr. Hugh Derry, already weakened from his encounter with Calvin, suffers a cardiac arrest. The devastated crew discovers, to their horror, that the creature, now a grotesque and even more terrifying tentacle being, had latched onto his leg, silently feeding on his body in a chilling act of predation. With a roar of alien fury, Calvin lunges at the survivors, sowing panic in a space where escape is impossible. Sho Murakami, driven by raw survival instinct, takes refuge in a hibernation capsule, sealing himself behind fragile glass. Calvin, relentless, pounds the crystal with savage force, try to reach him, but the material holds for now. David Jordan and Miranda North, the quarantine officer, their hearts heavy but minds sharp, devise a desperate plan. They use Hugh's lifeless body as bait to lure Calvin away from Sho. With heart-wrenching effort, they manage to trap the creature in a sealed module, attempting to suffocate it by depriving of oxygen, clinging to the faint hope of defeating the monster. But fate has other plans. Before the communication system failed, Earth received a distress signal and activated the Level C containment protocol, sending a Soyuz capsule to push the ISS into deep space, far from humanity. Sho, blinded by the hope of rescue, abandons his shelter and races to the Soyuz, struggling with all his might to open the docking hatch. When he succeeds, Calvin, ever vigilant, attacks with inhuman ferocity. The crew, in a desperate bid, tries to save him, but the confrontation triggers a catastrophe. The capsule detaches and crashes into the station, throwing it off course. Instead of drifting into the infinite void, the ISS is hurled back toward an atmospheric re-entry orbit, a path to destruction that could deliver Calvin to Earth. David and Miranda, the last survivors, face the harsh reality of their situation. With the station on the brink of collapse, David, blending courage with resignation, proposes a final plan. Use the 2 escape capsules. He will lure Calvin into one and pilot it into interplanetary space, sacrificing himself to save humanity, while Miranda escapes to Earth in the other. With a heavy heart, David leads Calvin into his capsule and launches into the void, while Miranda, tears of helplessness in her eyes, ejects hers, But Calvin, an unstoppable force of nature, attacks David, overpowering him and preventing him from controlling the capsule. Meanwhile, Miranda's navigation system fails and her capsule, directionless, drifts into the vastness of the cosmos, accompanied by her screams of terror echoing in the silence of space. A capsule begins its atmospheric re-entry and lands in the sea near two Vietnamese fishermen watching with curiosity. Uncertainty reigns. Is it David's capsule or Miranda's? As the fishermen approach the glass, the truth hits like a sledgehammer. It's David, ensnared in an alien web, slowly being absorbed by Calvin, whose power seems boundless. In his final moments, David, his voice broken by pain, tries to warn the fishermen not to open the capsule, not to unleash the monster. But they, oblivious to his pleas and the looming danger, open the door as two more fishing boats approach, unaware of the horror they are about to unleash on Earth. In space, Miranda's capsule, adrift, vanishes into the darkness, carried with it the echo of her despair.